I remember the night vividly. It was our 10th anniversary, and I had planned a surprise dinner. As I set the table with her favorite flowers, the doorbell rang. Little did I know, the surprise was on me. The aroma of roasted garlic and rosemary chicken filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. I had even managed to find a bottle of the Chardonnay Jessica loves so much. Tonight was supposed to be special, a celebration of our decade together, through thick and thin. Jessica will love this, I thought as I lit the candles, their soft glow casting a romantic hue over the dining room. The table was set for two, adorned with white lilies, her favorite. I glanced at the clock. She was running late, but that wasn't unusual these days. Ever since she started attending the pottery workshop, her evenings had grown longer. The doorbell rang, and I hurried to answer, expecting to see Jessica's smiling face. Instead, it was her friend, Karen. "John, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "Can I come in?" "Of course, Karen. Is everything okay?" I asked, stepping aside to let her in. She walked past me, her eyes scanning the dining room, taking in the romantic setup. "I didn't mean to intrude, but I thought you should know something," Karen began, hesitating. She took a deep breath and continued, "It's about Jessica." My heart skipped a beat. "What about Jessica?" She's been seeing someone at the pottery workshop. His name is Alex. I've seen them together, John. It doesn't look good." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "What are you saying, Karen?" "I'm saying that Jessica might be having an affair." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt a mix of disbelief and anger rise within me. This couldn't be true. Not Jessica, not on our anniversary. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, John, I thought you should know. Maybe there's an explanation, but you deserve to find out." I nodded, numb. Karen left, and I stood there staring at the beautifully set table that now felt like a cruel joke. The clock ticked on, and with each passing minute, my mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and heartbreak. An hour later, Jessica walked through the door, her face flushed, and her hair slightly disheveled. She looked surprised to see me standing there, waiting. "John, what's all this?" she asked, her eyes darting to the table, then back to me. "I thought we could have a special dinner for our anniversary," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at her phone, feigning surprise. "Oh, I lost track of time. I'm so sorry." I looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of the woman I thought I knew. "Jessica, we need to talk." Her expression changed, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't," I said firmly. "I know about Alex." Her eyes widened, and she took a step back. "What do you mean?" "I know you've been spending time with him, more than just at the workshop. Karen saw you." Jessica's face paled. "John, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, my voice breaking. She hesitated, then sighed. "John, I've made a mistake. I got too close to Alex, but it didn't mean anything." "It didn't mean anything?" I echoed, feeling a surge of anger. "On our 10th anniversary, Jessica?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, John. I didn't want to hurt you." But the damage was done. The perfect night I had planned shattered into pieces, much like my trust in her. As I looked at the table, the flowers, the candles, everything felt hollow. The woman I had loved for 10 years had betrayed me, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and heartache. I moved through life in a daze, struggling to reconcile the woman I loved with the betrayal I felt. Jessica tried to apologize, her words echoing in the empty spaces of our home, but they did little to mend the cracks in my heart. I spent more time at work, diving into my cases with a fervor that bordered on obsession. The long hours kept me from thinking too much about Jessica and Alex, but even in the midst of legal documents and courtrooms, the thoughts lingered. One evening, as I was getting ready to leave the office, my colleague and friend Mark walked in. He took one look at me and frowned. "John, you look like hell. What's going on?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's Jessica. She's been seeing someone else." Mark's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, man, that's tough. Have you talked to her about it?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice heavy. "She says it didn't mean anything, but how am I supposed to believe that?" Mark nodded, leaning against my desk. "It's not easy, but you need to figure out what you want to do next. Running yourself into the ground with work isn't going to help. He was right, of course, but the thought of confronting my emotions, of dealing with the pain, seemed too much to bear. I shrugged and grabbed my coat. I'll think about it. Right now, I just need to get home. As I drove back, memories of Jessica and me flooded my mind. Our first date, our wedding, the way she used to laugh at my jokes. How had things gone so wrong? When I walked through the door, Jessica was sitting on the couch staring blankly at the TV. She looked up when she saw me, her eyes red from crying. "John," she began, but I held up a hand. "Not tonight, Jessica. I can't do this right now," I said, my voice weary. She nodded, her expression filled with sadness and regret. "Okay, but can we at least try to talk tomorrow?" "Maybe," I replied, heading upstairs to our bedroom. I needed space and time to think without the weight of her presence. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, the events of the past few days playing over and over in my mind. How long had this been going on? Had there been signs I missed? The questions gnawed at me, keeping sleep at bay. The next morning, I woke up early and decided to take a walk. The air was crisp, and the first hints of autumn beginning to show in the trees. As I walked, I thought about our relationship, the love that had once seemed unbreakable. Could it be repaired? Did I even want to try? When I returned home, Jessica was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked up, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. "John, we need to talk," she said softly. I nodded, sitting down at the table. "Yeah, we do." She sat across from me, taking a deep breath. "I know I've hurt you, and I can't even begin to express how sorry I am. But I need you to know that what happened with Alex, it was a mistake. I was feeling lost and disconnected, and I turned to him for comfort. It was wrong, and I regret it every day." "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked, my voice filled with pain. "We've always talked about everything. Why was this different?" Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know, John. I felt like we were drifting apart, and I didn't know how to reach you. The workshop was supposed to be a way to find myself again, but instead, I lost sight of what really mattered." I sighed, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I don't know if I can trust you again, Jessica. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were." "I understand," she whispered, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right, to rebuild our trust. I love you, John, and I don't want to lose you." As I looked at her, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had made me laugh and supported me through everything. Despite the betrayal, a part of me still loved her. But the road to forgiveness and healing was long and uncertain. "I need time," I said finally. "Time to figure out what I want, what we need to do. Can you give me that?" She nodded, her expression filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Of course, John. Take all the time you need." As the days turned into weeks, I tried to navigate the complexities of my emotions. Some days, the anger and hurt felt insurmountable. On other days, I caught glimpses of the love that had once defined our relationship. Jessica was patient, giving me space while also trying to show me that she was committed to making things right. One evening, as we sat in the living room, I looked at her and said, "Let's try counseling. Maybe it can help us figure out where we went wrong and if we can fix this." Jessica's eyes lit up with hope. "I'd like that, John. I'd like that a lot." And so we began the journey of rebuilding, step by step, unsure of what the future held but determined to face it together. Our first counseling session was awkward. We sat in the therapist's cozy office, surrounded by shelves filled with books and calming artwork. Dr. Lewis, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an air of quiet authority, welcomed us with a warm smile. "John, Jessica, thank you for coming," she began. "I know this isn't easy, but it's a positive step. Why don't we start with each of you sharing what brought you here today?" I looked at Jessica, her eyes downcast, and took a deep breath. "I found out Jessica was having an affair with someone from her pottery workshop. We've been married for 10 years, and this betrayal has shaken me to my core. I'm here because I need to understand why this happened and if we can move past it." Dr. Lewis nodded and turned to Jessica. "Jessica, what about you?" Jessica's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I made a terrible mistake. I let myself get too close to someone else because I felt lost and disconnected in my marriage. I love John, and I want to find a way to rebuild what we've lost." Thank you for sharing, Dr. Lewis said. It's important to acknowledge the pain and the reasons behind it. Now let's talk about your relationship before the affair. John, how did you perceive your marriage? I thought back to the early years, the love and laughter that had defined our relationship. It was good, at least in the beginning. We were happy and supportive of each other, but over time things changed. Work got busier, and we started to drift apart. I guess I didn't realize how far apart we'd become. Jessica nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I felt the same way. It was like we were living separate lives under the same roof. I missed the connection we used to have. Dr. Lewis leaned forward. It's common for couples to drift apart over time, especially when life gets busy. But it's also important to recognize these feelings and address them before they lead to bigger problems. John, how did you cope with the changes in your relationship? I threw myself into work, I admitted. It was easier to focus on my cases than to deal with the issues at home. I thought I was providing for us, but I see now that I was neglecting the emotional side of our marriage. And Jessica, how did you cope? Dr. Lewis asked gently. I felt lonely, she replied. The pottery workshop was supposed to be an escape, a way to find myself again. But instead, I found someone who listened, who made me feel valued. It was wrong, and I regret it deeply. Dr. Lewis nodded. It's clear that both of you were struggling in your own ways. The affair was a symptom of deeper issues. Healing will require addressing those underlying problems and rebuilding trust. Are you both committed to this process? We looked at each other, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. Yes, I said finally. I want to try. Me too, Jessica echoed. I want to make this work. Dr. Lewis smiled. Good. Let's start by setting some goals. Trust is essential, but it has to be earned. Jessica, you'll need to be transparent and consistent in your actions. John, you'll need to be open to rebuilding trust, even though it's difficult. As we left the session, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but at least we were taking steps forward. Over the next few weeks, we attended more counseling sessions, slowly unpacking the layers of our relationship. Jessica showed me her messages and her schedule, trying to be as transparent as possible. It was hard, and there were times when I doubted her sincerity, but I could see she was making an effort. One evening, after a particularly challenging session, we decided to take a walk in the park. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the trees. We walked in silence, the only sound the crunch of leaves underfoot. Do you remember our first date? Jessica asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I smiled at the memory. How could I forget? We went to that little Italian restaurant downtown. You wore that blue dress, and I couldn't take my eyes off you. Jessica laughed softly. I was so nervous. I thought I'd spill wine all over myself. But you didn't, I replied, taking her hand. You were perfect. We walked hand in hand, the memories of our past reminding us of what we had once shared. It wasn't easy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. As we continued our journey of healing, we faced many challenges. There were days when the pain felt unbearable, when the anger and hurt threatened to overwhelm me. But there were also moments of connection, of rediscovery. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, Jessica turned to me. John, I know I hurt you, and I can't change the past. But I want you to know that I love you, and I'm committed to making this work, whatever it takes. I looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity and determination there. I love you too, Jessica. It's going to be a long road, but I'm willing to walk it with you. And so we continued our journey, step by step, rebuilding the trust and love that had once defined our marriage. The future was uncertain, but as long as we faced it together, there was hope. Despite our commitment to the counseling process, the path to healing was fraught with emotional landmines. The more we talked, the more I realized how much had been left unsaid over the years. Old wounds were reopened, and new ones formed as we navigated the painful terrain of rebuilding our relationship. One Friday evening, I came home to find Jessica in the kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of spaghetti and homemade marinara sauce filled the air, a nostalgic reminder of simpler times. She looked up as I entered, a tentative smile on her face. Hey, she said softly. I thought we could have a nice dinner tonight, just the two of us. I nodded, setting my briefcase down. That sounds good. As we sat down to eat, the conversation was stilted at first, filled with awkward silences and cautious attempts at small talk. But gradually, we found a rhythm, reminiscing about old memories and laughing at shared jokes. It felt almost normal, a glimpse of the life we once had. Halfway through the meal, Jessica reached across the table, taking my hand. "John, I know this is hard, but I want you to know how much I appreciate your willingness to try. It means everything to me." I squeezed her hand, feeling a flicker of warmth. "I'm trying, Jessica. It's not easy, but I don't want to give up on us." She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Neither do I." After dinner, we moved to the living room, the ambiance more relaxed. Jessica picked up her pottery wheel, a recent addition to our home since she stopped going to the workshop. She had decided to continue her hobby at home, a gesture to show her commitment to our relationship. "Do you want to try?" she asked, gesturing to the wheel. I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, why not?" She guided me through the basics, her hands steadying mine as we molded the clay together. It was a messy process, but surprisingly therapeutic. As the lump of clay took shape, I felt a sense of accomplishment, however small. "Not bad," Jessica said, smiling. "You have a knack for this." I laughed, the tension easing a bit. Maybe I missed my calling. The evening ended on a hopeful note, but the reality of our situation was never far from my mind. The next morning, I woke up early, the weight of our unresolved issues pressing down on me. I decided to go for a run, hoping the physical exertion would clear my head. As I jogged through the neighborhood, the cool morning air invigorating, I thought about the man I had become. I had always prided myself on being strong, reliable, the one who held everything together. But now I felt adrift, uncertain of my place in the world. When I returned home, Jessica was sitting on the porch, a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked up as I approached, her expression unreadable. "Morning," she said, her voice hesitant. "Morning," I replied, sitting down beside her. We sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the waking world around us. Finally, Jessica spoke. "John, I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened. I know it's going to take time, but I believe we can get through this. Do you?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I want to believe that, Jessica, but it's hard. Every time I look at you, I see the betrayal. I see Alex, and it hurts." She reached for my hand, her touch gentle. "I know, and I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, I would, but all I can do is try to make things right, one day at a time." I looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity there. "I know you're trying, and I appreciate that, but I need you to understand that this isn't just about you. It's about us and the trust we need to rebuild." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I understand, John, and I'm here, for as long as it takes." The days turned into weeks, and slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild our lives. Counseling helped, giving us the tools to communicate better and to address the underlying issues that had driven us apart. We learned to be honest with each other and to share our fears and hopes without judgment. One afternoon, as we sat in Dr. Lewis' office, she asked us to reflect on our progress. "You've both come a long way," she said, her tone encouraging. "But healing is a continuous process. How do you feel about where you are now?" I glanced at Jessica, then back at Dr. Lewis. "It's been tough, but I think we're stronger now. We've learned to be more open, more vulnerable with each other." Jessica nodded. "I agree. We've faced our demons, and while there's still a lot of work to do, I feel hopeful for the first time in a long time." Dr. Lewis smiled. "That's a good place to be. Remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Keep supporting each other, and you'll continue to grow." As we left the session, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, I believed that we could navigate it together. We had faced the darkness and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to rebuild our fragile foundations, one step at a time. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, I took Jessica's hand. "You know," I said softly, "I think we're going to be okay." She squeezed my hand, her smile warm and genuine. "Me too, John, me too." And in that moment, under the vast expanse of the night sky, I felt a flicker of hope, a promise of a brighter future. Together, we could face anything, as long as we held on to each other. Despite the progress we were making, there were still days when the shadows of doubt and mistrust loomed large. The hardest part was the moments when I would catch myself questioning everything, doubting even the smallest gestures from Jessica. It was a constant battle between my head and my heart, between the love I still felt and the pain that had taken root. One afternoon, I received a call at work from Jessica. Her voice sounded unusually tense, and it immediately put me on edge. "John, can we talk tonight? I need to tell you something," she said. My stomach dropped. "Sure, Jess. Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's important. I'll explain when you get home." The rest of the day dragged on, my mind racing with possibilities. When I finally walked through the front door, Jessica was waiting in the living room, her hands clasped tightly together. "John, please sit down," she said, her voice trembling. I sat, my heart pounding. "What is it, Jessica?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. "I received a message from Alex today. He said he wants to meet to talk." Anger flared up inside me. "What does he want now? Hasn't he done enough damage?" "I don't know," she replied, her voice small. "But I think it's important for me to meet him, to get closure, to make it clear that whatever we had is over." I stood up, unable to contain my frustration. "Why now, Jessica? We've been working so hard to move past this, and now he just shows up again?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I didn't ask for this, John. I didn't want him to contact me. But I think facing him might help me, help us, put this behind us once and for all." I paced the room, trying to calm myself. "I don't like this, Jessica. I don't trust him, and I don't trust the situation. What if he tries to manipulate you again?" She shook her head. "I'm not the same person I was, John. I won't let that happen. But I need to do this. For us." I stopped, looking at her, seeing the determination in her eyes. I knew she was right, but the fear of losing her again gnawed at me. "Okay," I said finally. "But I want to be there. I want to know what he says, to make sure he's not trying to worm his way back into your life." She nodded, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, John. I promise you, this will be the end of it." The next day, we met Alex at a small cafe downtown. He looked nervous, shifting uncomfortably in his seat as we approached. Jessica sat down opposite him, and I took a seat beside her, my presence a silent reminder of our united front. "Thank you for meeting me," Alex began, his voice tentative. "I just wanted to apologize for everything that's happened. I never meant to cause so much pain." Jessica nodded, her expression calm but firm. "I appreciate that, Alex. But you need to understand that what we did was wrong. I was in a vulnerable place and I made a terrible mistake. But that's over now. John and I are working to rebuild our marriage, and I need you to respect that." Alex's eyes flickered to me, then back to Jessica. "I understand. I just wanted to say goodbye properly and wish you both the best." There was an awkward silence, and then Jessica stood up. "Goodbye, Alex. I hope you find peace." We left the cafe, the tension between us palpable. As we walked back to the car, I took Jessica's hand. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her eyes were distant. "Yes, it was harder than I thought it would be, but I feel like a weight has been lifted." That night, as we lay in bed, I held her close, the fear and doubt still lingering. "Jessica, I want to trust you completely again, but it's hard. Every time I think we're moving forward, something like this happens." She turned to face me, her eyes filled with tears. "I know, John, and I'm so sorry for everything, but I believe we can get through this, as long as we keep fighting for us." I kissed her forehead, trying to push away the shadows of doubt. "I believe that too. We'll get there, one step at a time." The days continued to pass, each one a mix of progress and setbacks. There were moments of joy when we laughed and felt like ourselves again, and moments of pain when the past threatened to pull us under. But through it all, we held on to each other, determined to reclaim the love we had lost. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Jessica leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for standing by me, John. I know it's been hard, but I promise you, I'm committed to making this work." I wrapped my arm around her, the warmth of her presence soothing my troubled heart. "I love you, Jessica. No matter what happens, I always will." And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but as long as we faced it together, I knew we could overcome anything. The weeks that followed our meeting with Alex were surprisingly calm. The shadows of doubt still lingered, but they were starting to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. Jessica and I continued our counseling sessions, each one a step forward in understanding and rebuilding our relationship. One Saturday morning, Jessica suggested we go on a weekend getaway. "Just the two of us," she said, her eyes filled with hope. "I think we need a change of scenery, a chance to reconnect away from everything." I hesitated. The idea of leaving our daily routine was both exciting and daunting, but the look in her eyes convinced me. "All right," I agreed. "Let's do it." We chose a quaint bed and breakfast in a small coastal town, a place we had visited years ago before life became complicated. As we drove, the familiar landscape brought back memories of happier times. The ocean stretched out before us, a symbol of both the vastness of our challenges and the possibilities of renewal. The inn was charming, with its whitewashed walls and blooming flower gardens. Our room overlooked the sea, the sound of waves crashing against the shore a soothing backdrop to our stay. That first evening, we walked along the beach, the cool sand beneath our feet. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink as the sun set, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. "Remember when we came here before?" Jessica asked, her voice soft as we strolled hand in hand. I smiled, recalling the carefree days of our early marriage. "Yeah, I remember. We spent hours exploring the tide pools and collecting shells." Jessica laughed, a sound that had become all too rare. "You found that huge conch shell and insisted it would bring us good luck." I chuckled. "I still have it, you know. It's on the bookshelf in the living room." Her eyes sparkled with surprise and affection. "I didn't realize you kept it." We continued our walk in comfortable silence, the rhythm of the waves matching the beat of our hearts. That night, as we lay in bed, the moonlight casting a silver glow through the window, I held Jessica close, feeling a sense of reconnection. The next day, we decided to explore the town. We visited small shops, bought trinkets, and enjoyed local seafood at a cozy restaurant by the pier. The simplicity of the day, free from the weight of our troubles, was refreshing. In the afternoon, we rented bicycles and rode through the scenic trails, laughing and racing each other like we were kids again. The wind in our hair and the sun on our faces felt like a promise of better days ahead. That evening, back at the inn, we sat on the porch, sipping wine and watching the stars. Jessica turned to me, her expression serious yet tender. "John, I know I've said this before, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am for everything. I never want to hurt you again." I looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity and regret there. "I believe you, Jessica, and I want to move forward to build a future together. It's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to try." She took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Me too. We'll take it one day at a time." Our weekend getaway ended too soon, but it left us with a renewed sense of hope and connection. Back home, we settled into a new routine, one that prioritized our relationship and the love we were rebuilding. We continued our pottery sessions, finding joy in creating something together. Each piece we crafted was a symbol of our journey, imperfect yet beautiful. Our evenings were filled with conversations, laughter, and moments of quiet intimacy that reminded us of why we fell in love in the first place. As the months passed, the pain of the past began to fade, replaced by a deeper understanding and appreciation for each other. Trust, once broken, was slowly being rebuilt, and with it came a renewed sense of partnership. One day, as we were working on a particularly challenging pottery piece, Jessica looked up at me, her eyes filled with determination. "John, I want us to renew our vows. I want to stand before you and our loved ones, and promise again to love and cherish you, this time with a deeper understanding of what that truly means." The idea took me by surprise, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt right. "I'd like that, Jessica. I'd like that a lot." Planning our vow renewal ceremony became a project that brought us even closer. We chose a beautiful spot by the beach, where we had found peace and reconnection. Surrounded by friends and family, we reaffirmed our commitment to each other, the waves, and the setting sun as our witnesses. As I stood there holding Jessica's hands, I felt a sense of gratitude for the journey we had endured. It hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but we had emerged stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever the future held. In the end, our story was one of resilience, love, and the power of forgiveness. We had found our way back to each other, and with every step forward, we were writing a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. With our vow renewal ceremony behind us, life began to settle into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. The daily routine of work, home, and our pottery sessions brought a sense of stability, yet there was an underlying current of change that kept us on our toes. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned vibrant shades of red and gold, I woke up to find Jessica already out of bed. I followed the scent of freshly brewed coffee to the kitchen, where she was sitting at the table, a contemplative look on her face. "Morning," I said, sitting down beside her. "What's on your mind?" She looked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I got a call from the pottery workshop yesterday. They want me to come back and teach a class." My heart skipped a beat. The workshop had been a source of pain and betrayal, but it had also been Jessica's sanctuary. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me is excited. I miss teaching and creating. But another part of me is scared. I'm afraid of what it might stir up." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "It's natural to feel that way, but this could be a chance for you to reclaim something you love, to make new memories." She smiled, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, John. Your support means everything to me." We decided that she would go back to the workshop, but with clear boundaries and a renewed sense of purpose. The first day was nerve-wracking for both of us. I watched her leave with a mixture of pride and anxiety, hoping that this step would be a positive one. That evening, Jessica came home with a lightness in her step that I hadn't seen in a long time. "It went really well," she said, her eyes sparkling. "It felt good to be back, to teach again, and everyone was so supportive." I pulled her into a hug, relief flooding through me. "I'm so glad, Jess. You deserve this." The weeks that followed saw Jessica thriving in her role as an instructor. She came home each day with stories of her students' progress and the joy she found in creating. It was a healing experience for both of us, a reminder that we could move forward without being held back by the past. One evening, as we were working on a pottery piece together, Jessica turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "John, I've been thinking a lot about what we've been through. I want us to continue growing, to keep finding ways to connect and strengthen our relationship." I nodded, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What do you have in mind?" "I read about a couples retreat that focuses on deepening communication and connection. It's a weekend getaway, kind of like what we did before, but with guided activities and workshops." I considered the idea, recognizing the value it could bring. "That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it." The retreat was held at a rustic lodge nestled in the mountains, surrounded by towering pines and serene lakes. The atmosphere was tranquil, a perfect setting for reflection and growth. We joined other couples, each with their own stories of struggle and resilience. The workshops were intense, pushing us to confront our fears and vulnerabilities. We participated in activities that required trust and collaboration, from blindfolded walks to trust falls. It was challenging, but it also brought us closer, breaking down the remaining barriers between us. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, we sat by the fire, the crackling flames providing a comforting backdrop. Jessica leaned her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. "John, I know we've come a long way, but there's something I need to tell you. I've been keeping it inside, and I think it's time to share." I turned to her, my heart tightening with concern. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "When Alex and I were involved, I wasn't just looking for a connection. I was running from my own insecurities, my fear of not being enough for you. I felt like I was failing as a wife, and instead of facing those fears, I made the worst mistake of my life." Her confession hit me like a wave, the raw honesty piercing through my defenses. I took her hands, feeling the tremor in her fingers. "Jessica, thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't easy, but you need to know that you've always been enough for me. I've had my own insecurities and shortcomings, and I'm sorry if I ever made you feel otherwise." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded. We were both lost, in our own ways, but I believe we found each other again. stronger than before. I kissed her forehead, feeling a sense of profound connection. We have, and we'll keep finding each other no matter what. The retreat ended, but the lessons we learned stayed with us. We returned home with a renewed sense of commitment and a deeper understanding of each other. Our journey was far from over, but we were walking it together, hand in hand. As the years passed, we faced new challenges and joys. We celebrated milestones, supported each other through hardships, and continued to grow as individuals and as a couple. Our love, once fragile and broken, had become a testament to resilience and forgiveness. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Jessica, feeling a sense of contentment. "You know, I think we're going to be okay." She smiled, her eyes filled with love. "I know we are, John. We've come too far to turn back now." And in that moment, under the endless sky, I felt a deep sense of peace. Our story was one of healing and hope, a reminder that love could endure even the darkest of times. Together, we had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life settled into a pleasant routine after the retreat, and the sense of peace we had found lingered. Jessica's pottery classes flourished, and I immersed myself in work, both of us finding fulfillment in our respective passions. We were learning to balance our individual lives while staying deeply connected as a couple. One day, as I was wrapping up a meeting at work, my phone buzzed with a call from Jessica. Her voice was breathless with excitement. "John, I have some incredible news. Can you come to the pottery workshop?" I felt a rush of curiosity. "Of course, I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I arrived at the workshop, Jessica was waiting outside, her eyes shining. She took my hand and led me inside, where a group of her students and fellow instructors were gathered. At the center of the room was a large, beautifully crafted pottery piece, a vase with intricate designs and a rich, earthy glaze. "This is amazing, Jess," I said, admiring the craftsmanship. "Did you make this?" She nodded, her smile widening. "Yes, but there's more. This piece has been selected for a national pottery exhibition in New York. It's a huge honor, and I'm invited to showcase my work alongside some of the best potters in the country." I pulled her into a hug, pride swelling in my chest. "That's incredible. I'm so proud of you, Jess. You deserve this." The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparations for the exhibition. Jessica was busy perfecting her pieces and finalizing details, while I did my best to support her. We planned a trip to New York, combining the exhibition with a much-needed mini-vacation. The day of the exhibition arrived and the atmosphere was electric. The gallery buzzed with excitement as artists and art enthusiasts mingled, admiring the various displays. Jessica's work stood out, her talent and dedication evident in every piece. As we strolled through the gallery, Jessica's hand in mine, I noticed a familiar face approaching us. It was Claire, an old college friend of Jessica's whom we hadn't seen in years. She looked radiant, her eyes lighting up when she saw us. "Jessica, John, it's been ages," Claire exclaimed, embracing us both. "I'm so happy to see you here. Jessica, your work is stunning." "Claire, it's so good to see you," Jessica said, her smile genuine. "What brings you here?" "I'm curating an art collection for a new gallery," Claire explained. "And I'd love to feature some of your work, Jess. What do you think?" Jessica's eyes widened with surprise and excitement. "That sounds amazing. Let's talk more about it." The rest of the evening was filled with joy and celebration. As the exhibition drew to a close, we found ourselves back at the hotel, exhausted but elated. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Jessica turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "John, I feel like everything is finally coming together. The exhibition, reconnecting with Claire, and the opportunities ahead. It all feels like a new beginning." I kissed her gently. "It is a new beginning, Jess, and I'm so grateful to be by your side, witnessing your success." The next morning, we decided to spend our last day in New York exploring the city. We visited Central Park, strolled through art galleries, and indulged in delicious street food. It was a perfect day, filled with laughter and shared experiences. As we sat on a bench in Central Park, soaking in the beauty around us, Jessica took my hand. "John, I've been thinking. We've come such a long way, and I couldn't have done it without you. I want to keep building our life together, with all its ups and downs." I looked into her eyes, seeing the love and determination there. "I want that too, Jessica. Whatever comes our way, we'll face it together. Our return home was filled with a renewed sense of purpose and excitement for the future. Jessica's work continued to gain recognition, and the gallery partnership with Claire flourished. We found ourselves navigating new challenges and opportunities, our bond growing stronger with each step. One evening, as we were enjoying a quiet dinner at home, Jessica suddenly looked serious. "John, there's something I need to tell you." A flicker of anxiety passed through me. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. "I've been feeling a bit off lately, so I went to the doctor, and I'm pregnant." Shock, followed by a rush of joy and disbelief, coursed through me. "Are you serious? That's incredible news." Jessica's eyes filled with tears of happiness. "Yes, it is. I know this is unexpected, but I believe it's a blessing." I stood up, pulling her into my arms. "It is a blessing, Jess. We're going to be parents." The news of the pregnancy brought a new dimension to our lives. We spent the following months preparing for the arrival of our baby, filled with anticipation and joy. The journey wasn't without its challenges, but we faced them together, stronger than ever. As we stood in the nursery one evening, putting the finishing touches on the room, I looked at Jessica, my heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "We've come through so much, Jess, and now we're about to start a whole new chapter." She smiled, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Yes, we are, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." In that moment, surrounded by the promise of new beginnings, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united in love and hope. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity as we prepared for the baby. Jessica's belly grew, and with it, our excitement and anticipation. We attended parenting classes, read every book we could find, and transformed the spare room into a cozy nursery. It was a time of joy and growth, both for our family and our relationship. One chilly winter morning, I woke to find Jessica pacing the bedroom, her face contorted with pain. "John," she said, her voice tight, "I think it's time." Panic and excitement surged through me. "Okay, let's get you to the hospital." We grabbed the hospital bag that had been packed and waiting for weeks and hurried to the car. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity, but we finally arrived and were quickly ushered into a delivery room. The hours that followed were a blur of contractions, encouragement, and a flurry of medical activity. Jessica was incredible, her strength and determination shining through even in the midst of the pain. I held her hand, offering what support I could, my heart swelling with pride and love for her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the room filled with the sound of a newborn's cry. The doctor held up our baby, a perfect tiny being, and placed her on Jessica's chest. Tears streamed down both our faces as we looked at our daughter for the first time. "She's beautiful," Jessica whispered, her voice filled with awe. I leaned down, kissing Jessica's forehead and then the baby's tiny head. "She is. You did amazing, Jess." We named her Lily, after Jessica's favorite flower. Holding her in my arms for the first time was a moment I would never forget. She was so small, so fragile, and yet filled with so much life and promise. The days that followed were a mix of exhaustion and euphoria. We brought Lily home, and our house transformed from a quiet, orderly place to a lively, chaotic one filled with the sounds of a newborn. Sleepless nights and constant feedings became the new normal, but amidst the challenges was a profound sense of joy and fulfillment. Jessica and I navigated this new chapter together, our bond growing stronger as we faced the trials of parenthood. There were moments of doubt and frustration, but there were also countless moments of love and connection. We were learning, growing, and adapting together, just as we had through every other challenge. One evening, as I rocked Lily to sleep, Jessica sat beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. "I can't believe how much our lives have changed," she said softly. "I know," I replied, looking down at our sleeping daughter, "but I wouldn't change a thing." Jessica smiled, her eyes filled with love. "Neither would I. We've come through so much, and now we have this beautiful little girl. It feels like a miracle." "It is a miracle," I said, feeling a deep sense of gratitude, "and it's just the beginning." As the weeks turned into months, we settled into our new life as parents. Jessica continued to pursue her passion for pottery, her work gaining even more recognition. I balanced my job with the joys and challenges of fatherhood, finding fulfillment in both. One afternoon, as we were playing with Lily in the park, Jessica turned to me, a thoughtful look on her face. "John, I've been thinking, I want to start a pottery school, a place where people can come to learn, to create, and to heal, just like I did." I smiled, loving the idea. "That sounds amazing, Jess. I think it's a perfect way to share your gift and help others." With my support, Jessica began to lay the groundwork for her school. It was a daunting task, but her passion and determination drove her forward. We found a suitable space, renovated it, and soon the doors of Jessica's pottery school were open to the community. The school quickly became a haven for those seeking creative expression and healing. Jessica's classes were always full, her students drawn not just by her skill, but by her warmth and understanding. Watching her flourish in this new role filled me with pride and admiration. Our lives were busy but deeply fulfilling. We continued to grow and adapt, finding joy in the everyday moments and strength in each other. Our family was our anchor, our source of love and support. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching Lily play in the yard, Jessica turned to me, her eyes reflecting the setting sun. "John, do you ever think about how far we've come?" I nodded, my heart full. "All the time. We've been through so much, but we've built something beautiful out of it." She smiled, reaching for my hand. "I'm so grateful for you, for us, for this life we've created." "I'm grateful too," I said, squeezing her hand, "and I can't wait to see what the future holds." As we sat there, watching our daughter's carefree laughter fill the air, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, with love, resilience, and a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had traveled. Our story was one of hope and healing, a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. And it was just the beginning. As the months passed, Jessica's pottery school flourished, becoming a cornerstone of the community. It was inspiring to see her passion and dedication touch so many lives. Meanwhile, my work was going well, and I had settled into a comfortable balance between my job and family life. Lily was growing fast, her curiosity and energy filling our days with joy. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, Jessica and I were sitting on the porch, enjoying the calm of the night. Jessica sighed contentedly, her hand resting on her belly, which had begun to show the unmistakable curve of pregnancy. We were expecting our second child, and the anticipation brought both excitement and a bit of apprehension. "Do you ever worry about how we'll handle it all?" Jessica asked, her voice soft. "Another baby, the school, your work." I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It will be a lot, but we'll manage, just like we always do. We're a team, and we'll figure it out together." Jessica smiled, leaning into me. "I know. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of each other in the midst of everything." "We won't," I promised. "We've come too far for that." Our second child, a boy we named James, was born on a bright spring morning. The moment I held him, I felt the same overwhelming love and awe I had felt when Lily was born. Our family had grown, and so had our hearts. The early days with James were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and endless feedings, but the joy of having him in our lives overshadowed the exhaustion. Lily was fascinated by her baby brother, always eager to help and shower him with affection. Watching our children together filled me with a profound sense of fulfillment. However, as time went on, we faced new challenges. Jessica's school demanded more of her time and energy, and my work responsibilities increased. Balancing our professional lives with the needs of two young children was not easy. There were days when the strain was palpable, and our patience wore thin. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Jessica and I sat down to talk. "John, I feel like we're being pulled in 100 different directions," she said, her voice heavy with fatigue. "I love the school, but I don't want it to come at the expense of our family." "I know what you mean," I replied, feeling the weight of her words. "I've been feeling the same way. Maybe we need to reassess our priorities and find a better balance." Together, we made some tough decisions. Jessica hired additional staff at the school to lighten her load, and I adjusted my work schedule to be more flexible. We also made a conscious effort to carve out family time, ensuring that we stayed connected amidst the chaos. Slowly, we found a new rhythm. The stress eased, and the joy of our family life returned. We made time for simple pleasures, weekend outings, family dinners, and quiet moments together. It wasn't always perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. One Saturday, we decided to take a day trip to the beach. It was a rare opportunity to escape the demands of everyday life and just be together. Lily and James played in the sand, their laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. Jessica and I sat on a blanket watching them, our hands entwined. "This is what it's all about," Jessica said, her eyes reflecting the joy of the moment. "These simple, beautiful moments." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Yes, it is. We've been through so much, but it's moments like these that remind me why it's all worth it." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the water, I looked at Jessica, feeling a swell of love and gratitude. "I love you, Jess. Thank you for everything." She smiled, leaning in to kiss me. "I love you too, John. Here's to many more moments like this." The months that followed were filled with both challenges and triumphs. We celebrated milestones, Lily starting school, James taking his first steps, and navigated the ups and downs of life together. Our love and commitment to each other remained our anchor, guiding us through the rough waters and helping us savor the calm. One evening, as we were putting the finishing touches on a family project, a large, colorful mosaic in our backyard, Jessica turned to me, her eyes shining with happiness. "John, I think we've built something beautiful, haven't we?" I looked at the mosaic, a testament to our journey, and then at her, my heart full. "Yes, we have, and I'm so grateful for every moment of it." Our story was one of resilience, love, and the power of partnership. We had faced our fears, overcome our challenges, and found joy in the everyday moments. And as we stood there, hand in hand, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, stronger and more united than ever. Life continued to be a blend of joy and challenges, with moments of sheer happiness, punctuated by the inevitable trials of raising a family. As Lily grew older and more independent, and James began to explore the world with his toddling steps, we found ourselves constantly adapting to the ever-changing dynamics of parenthood. Jessica's pottery school was thriving with a steady stream of students and an ever-expanding reputation for excellence. I took great pride in her success, knowing how hard she had worked to get there. My own career was demanding, but I found ways to be more present for my family, ensuring that work never overshadowed our time together. One evening, after a long day, Jessica and I were sitting on the porch watching the kids play in the yard. The setting sun casts a warm glow over everything, creating a perfect moment of tranquility. "John," Jessica began, her voice contemplative, "I've been thinking about something." I turned to her, curious. "What's on your mind?" "I've been approached by a publisher who's interested in a book about my journey with pottery. They think my story, especially how the workshop helped us heal, could inspire others." My heart swelled with pride. "That's incredible, Jess. Your story is definitely worth telling. How do you feel about it?" "I'm excited," she admitted, "but also nervous. It's one thing to teach pottery, but writing a book feels so personal, so exposed." I squeezed her hand, offering reassurance. "You've already shared so much through your work. This is just another way to reach people, to inspire them, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Jessica smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, John. That means everything to me." As Jessica embarked on her new writing journey, I took on more responsibilities at home, ensuring that she had the time and space she needed to write. Our evenings often found her at her desk, typing away, while I read bedtime stories to Lily and James. It was a challenging adjustment, but seeing her passion and dedication made it worthwhile. Months passed, and the manuscript began to take shape. Jessica poured her heart into it, sharing not just her experiences with pottery, but also the intimate details of our journey through betrayal, healing, and renewal. It was a raw and honest account, and I couldn't have been prouder of her. During this time, I faced my own set of challenges at work. A major project had come up, demanding more of my attention and energy. Balancing work, home life, and supporting Jessica's writing was no easy feat, and there were moments when the stress felt overwhelming. One particularly tough day, I came home to find Jessica waiting for me, concern etched on her face. "John, you look exhausted. What's going on?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's just work. This project is taking a lot out of me. I'm trying to keep everything balanced, but it's hard. Jessica stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. You've been so amazing, supporting me and handling everything at home. But you need to take care of yourself too. Let's figure this out together. Her words brought a sense of relief. We sat down and talked, finding ways to lighten the load and make adjustments. We reached out to friends and family for help, delegating tasks and finding small moments to recharge. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it made a difference. As the months went by, we settled into a new rhythm. Jessica's book was nearing completion, and my project at work was progressing well. The kids continued to thrive, their laughter and energy a constant source of joy. Finally, the day came when Jessica held the first copy of her book in her hands. She looked at it with a mix of awe and disbelief. I can't believe it's real, she said, her voice filled with emotion. I pulled her into a hug, feeling a swell of pride. You did it, Jess. I'm so proud of you. The book's release was met with an outpouring of support and positive feedback. Jessica's story resonated with many, and she received numerous letters from readers who had been touched by her journey. It was a testament to her courage and resilience, and it brought a new sense of fulfillment to her life. One evening, as we sat on the porch, reflecting on everything that had happened, Jessica turned to me, her eyes filled with love. John, we've been through so much, and we've come out stronger. I couldn't have done any of this without you. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. We've been through it all together, Jess, and we'll keep facing whatever comes our way, side by side. Our journey was far from over, but we had learned to navigate the twists and turns with love, resilience, and unwavering support for each other. As we looked out at our children playing in the fading light, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, our bond unbreakable and our love enduring. At that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had built a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. And as we sat there, hand in hand, I knew that the best was yet to come. Life had settled into a comfortable routine after the excitement of Jessica's book release. Our days were filled with the usual mix of work, family time, and the occasional surprise that comes with raising two young children. It felt like we had finally found a rhythm that worked for us. One crisp autumn evening, as we were gathered around the dinner table, Lily excitedly sharing stories from school, and James babbling in his high chair, the phone rang. Jessica answered it, her cheerful, "Hello?" quickly turning into a frown. She glanced at me, her eyes wide with concern. "John, it's your mother," she said, handing me the phone. My mother's voice was shaky on the other end. "John, I'm so sorry to call during dinner, but your father's had a stroke. He's in the hospital." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My father, the strong, unwavering pillar of our family, was suddenly vulnerable. "I'll be there as soon as I can," I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. Jessica immediately began packing an overnight bag, her expression filled with concern and determination. "We'll go together," she said. "The kids can stay with my parents." Within an hour, we were on the road to the hospital, a heavy silence filling the car. My mind raced with memories of my father, his hearty laugh, his words of wisdom, his unwavering support. The thought of losing him was unbearable. When we arrived at the hospital, my mother was in the waiting room, her face etched with worry and exhaustion. She hugged me tightly, and I could feel her trembling. "He's stable for now, but the doctors say it's serious." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "We'll get through this, Mom. He's a fighter." The following days were a blur of hospital visits, medical updates, and difficult decisions. My father's condition was touch and go, and the stress took a toll on all of us. Jessica was a rock, providing support and keeping everything together, even as she juggled the demands of her school and our children. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Jessica and I sat in the hospital cafeteria, sipping lukewarm coffee. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. "I don't know," I admitted. "I feel like everything is falling apart." She reached across the table, taking my hand. "We'll get through this, John. Your father is strong, and he's getting the best care, and you're not alone in this. We're all here for you." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of despair. "Thank you, Jess. I don't know what I'd do without you." As the days turned into weeks, My father's condition slowly began to improve. He regained consciousness, and though he had a long road to recovery ahead, the worst seemed to be over. The relief was overwhelming, and I found myself filled with gratitude for the resilience of my family. Back home, life gradually returned to normal. My father's recovery continued, and we visited him regularly, bringing the kids to lift his spirits. It was a time of healing, both for him and for us as a family. One evening, as we sat on the porch reflecting on the recent ordeal, Jessica turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "John, I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" I asked, curious. "Going through this with your father made me realize how important family is. I think we should consider moving closer to your parents. It would make it easier to support them, and the kids would benefit from being around their grandparents more." I considered her words, feeling a mix of emotions. The idea of uprooting our lives was daunting, but the benefits were undeniable. It's a big change, but you're right. Family is everything, and being closer would mean a lot to all of us. We spent the next few weeks discussing the logistics, weighing the pros and cons, and ultimately deciding to make the move. It was a challenging process, filled with uncertainty and the bittersweet task of saying goodbye to our current home and community. As we settled into our new home, closer to my parents, we found a new sense of purpose and connection. The kids thrived with their grandparents nearby, and Jessica's pottery school continued to flourish, finding a new home in our new community. One afternoon, as we unpacked the last of the boxes, Jessica turned to me, her eyes filled with warmth. "We've faced so many challenges, John, but through it all, we've found our way together." I smiled, pulling her into a hug. "We have, and we always will." Life continued to throw its curveballs, but we faced them with resilience and love. Our family grew stronger, our bond unbreakable. And as we stood in our new home, surrounded by the promise of new beginnings, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united in our love and commitment to each other. Our journey was far from over, but with each step, we found strength in each other, navigating the twists and turns with grace and unwavering support. As we embraced the future, I felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that no matter what came our way, we would face it together, our love and resilience guiding us through.